Welcome to the StockMentor.com studios here in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I'm your stock mentor, Brian Johnson. I'm making professional trading simple. Thank you all for joining me here. Sunday weekend video. Got some new plays for you. Going to go over the markets and things to look for in the new week. We are done with options expiration week, so the volatility that we usually see should maybe start to subside somewhat. I wouldn't say that we won't see volatility, but we should see maybe some more consistent movement to the markets. Whether that's up or down has yet to be determined, but at least more consistent movements. Whereas during options expiration, you goes up 20 points one day, and the next day you wake up it's down 15. So do keep in mind though we are in the middle of earnings season, so anything you trade, any suggestions you take from my newsletters, whether it's this one or my subscribers' newsletters, please check earnings. The only one I know of coming up is Apple that I have on my list just because we've been following it for a while. I don't know about the other ones, but please check earnings. I do not recommend you hold over earnings. A lot of people do. That's just not a trading style for me. It's more for me. It's just more gambling because you never know which direction the stock's going to go once they report. It could report well and go down. You just never know. But anyway, as it is, just please check earnings as we proceed further. All right, so looking in on the markets here, we can see where we kind of left off the last couple weeks, and that was I drew in these teal lines just as a possible, for instance, could be type of a scenario as to where we could see the markets move once once these lines were broken. Here's this teal line here, which gives us a little shoulder, a head, and a shoulder. On the break of this one, the target was somewhere around 10,070. And you can see we hit the 10,062 mark, so this one could have ended up being pretty valid if you want to look at inverse head and shoulders. This teal line here could be a larger inverse head and shoulder, and that's a shoulder here, a head here, and this is, I don't necessarily like this shoulder. It's a pretty small shoulder, but nonetheless could be viewed as a shoulder. If this one ends up being valid, the target on this one is going to put us somewhere in the 10,200 range, somewhere around in there, which could very well happen before this whole run is over with. We may see a pullback, though, coming into next week. I would certainly not be surprised to see a gap down tomorrow morning. I don't know. Futures aren't open, so I really don't know where we're at right now or what we're looking at. But maybe earnings in the morning make it move one way or the other. The only reason, and that's just a hunch on my part, really. I'm just looking at it from look at the Dow and how it fell out of this trend line here, and now at the end of Friday came back up to retest this line. Maybe we see it continue to retest this line come Monday morning. Otherwise, this could have been a little retest before a move down back here to the 9,900 area, or this would be a little bit deeper pullback here down here to this 98.50 area. This is certainly an area the bulls want to hold, is right back here at 98.50 on the Dow. So a gap down on Monday maybe would drive us down to this area here before we see a little bit of a bounce. This 50 should act as a pause point as well. I'd be surprised to see it blow right through this without at least a pause or a stop or a small bounce at this area. So be watching these areas on the Dow. As you can see, it's already broke this line here and come back up to retest. Now the next move down, logical, would be this 98.50 area. If we look at it on a daily, you can see here where we've had this nice run up. We're back up to the top of this channel here, and now we've got one move, one little red candle up here, but it's pretty much sideways. Just a typical high base similar to what we saw here. This might be some similar action here, where it either bases sideways and continues a little move up, or it could base sideways and then move back down. Back into the 20-day moving average or the bottom of this channel. But as you can see, this channel has held very nicely. The one thing to keep an eye on, though, is that the MACD is giving us a divergence. That means that while the price of the stock is going up, you can see that the movement of the MACD is going down. That's a divergence here. So be watching that. Now that in no way means that we're going to see a huge pullback next week, because you never know when these divergences play themselves out, or if they play themselves out. It's just something to kind of keep on the back of your mind as you're watching these markets as we move forward. What we're really looking for is a move below somewhere around 99.40. Move below 99.40 would maybe put us in for another day, at least another day or so of a pullback. So we'll be watching that on the Dow. The NDX on a 60-minute, you can see here where we came back up and retested the bottom of that trend line, and then it seemed to kind of fall out of bed. This was the Nasdaq kind of gave us a little bit. It's been a little bit weaker than the other indices have, the Dow and the S&P, and so that was my first clue that we might start to see a down day even last week, and I made mention of that, and we did. We did get a pullback. Well, not a pullback, but a down day. We got a down day after seeing that the Nasdaq was kind of leading here, really wasn't moving up anymore, and it's in most cases a leading indicator. You can see we're still below this dotted line on the Nasdaq daily. This is what we're looking to hold moving forward if you're a bear. If you're a bull, you would love to see it get back up and over this into the 1775 area, but this 1755 area, 1756, 1755 has been very staunch resistance, as it should have on the first couple of attempts. If this has a very shallow pullback here and maybe starts to stop right down here about the 20-day moving average, we could see another push up, and I would think that if it got back up to the 1755 area again, it would more than likely push through it. We would then be looking at this dotted line for your next area of resistance. NDX on a weekly still putting in a little spinning top doji right here on that last week. So that could be a reversal doji, could be a continuation doji, just never know. We'll wait until the end of next week to know for sure which direction we're going to be heading on a weekly. Here's the SPX, and you can see it's kind of held this trend line. I'm going to go ahead and keep this trend line here. This is holding it very nicely, but a breakdown and below 1085 or so, and I've made these mentions before to you 1,000 times, but I'll tell you again, that going into next week, looking at 1085, then below that 1080, then below that 1075. 1075 is certainly the area the bulls want to hold and the bears want to break. 1075 was very, very strong resistance on the way back up, and once the bulls got above it, they would love to just hold it. So they're looking to really hold the 1075 area. To the upside, you're looking at this 1100 area. For sure. So between 1095 and 1100 should act as pretty strong resistance going into next week. We are at this upper channel line, just as we are in a lot of the other indices, except for the Nasdaq, but the Dow is right up to its upper trend line. The S&P for sure is. Above it, we could see a run to this little dotted line. This is just a for instance could be type of a trend line. It really doesn't have a lot of merit with me right now, but this kind of gives us an idea for a direction. You can see that is up above the 1100 area. One more pullback could take us back to the 1085, 1075 area, and that's certainly, as I said before, would be a place it's going to be looking to hold. I drew a gray line through here. If you can see this very light gray line through here, it should act as support. This line here should act as support. You have the 20-day moving average, then below that you just have lots of support below this market right now. The bulls are certainly in the driver's seat for all practical purposes. SPX on a weekly, you can see here that at the end of the week we're still above this resistance. This little blue line that I'm tracing right here, it goes all the way back to like 07, 08 area. So this is a strong line to get up and above. It did it last week and the week before. The week before it just barely closed above it, and last week it managed to definitely close above it. So that was a very strong move by the bulls on a weekly time frame to get up and over it. Now the next upper target would be around that 1100 to 1120 area. That would be the next step for the XPX on a weekly. The VIX on a daily, we're going to continue to watch this too. As you can see, it continuously fell. It now broke this level here. It's now down below this level here. And the VIX continues to make its move to the downside on a weekly. If we get a move down tomorrow morning, watch for the VIX to open up right on this blue line, right at or close to the $20 mark. That would be a very, very logical place for it to start the week if we get a gap down in the morning. If we don't, but yet still continue to move down sometime during the week, look for the VIX to retest this upper line here, and if it breaks that, of course, then this line here at about the $18, $19 mark would be the next logical place for it to find support. Apple on a 60-minute, going to watch this one. You can see it's in